Good morning and welcome to H3 TV. I usually have a guest, but she didn't show today, so I'm going to go live without her, as I always believe the show must go on, whether you have a guest or not. And I have something on my mind I want to talk to you all about today. Anyway, so I want to talk about being pissed off. I want to talk about being angry. I want to talk about what wakes you up in the morning. So, unfortunately, I chose to go to a wake yesterday. And I left so sad and angry. Hello, Lisa. I see you there. I'll be with you in a minute. She did show up. And I thought, I want people to get pissed off with me because I think when we're pissed off, we can find our passion, our emotion, and we can make a change in the world. And unfortunately, it was another young man dying too soon by taking his life. And I lost my brother 34 years ago to suicide. And I think we have to radically change how we teach young men, young people to talk about and express emotion, that it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be lonely, it's okay to be overwhelmed, but it's not okay to take our lives. And people don't commit suicide because they want to die. They take their lives because the hope has gone out. They are feeling hopeless. Their light has become darkness. And I just want to gather with people that are pissed off and want to make a radical change in how we teach people to feel and express emotion without apology or aggression, but to be sad and to talk about it. Talk about that life is hard. Talk about that people feel overwhelmed before we lose one more life to suicide. And I know this is a radical problem and we need a radical solution, but I wanted to start my H3 TV this week by saying who will join me in being pissed off and who will join me in making a difference. I know that SAVE organization does a lot of good work, but I want to do more. And I want to gather with people that want to do more to help people deal with emotion and mental health and overwhelmness and hopelessness. And that's why we have H3 TV to talk about hope, health, and happiness in the heart of life, which will always be hard. There's beauty and greatness, but there's also always hard. But before we go any deeper, just please let me know if you're pissed off and you want to join me in the movement and creating hope. And that's kind of why I do my P3 pineapple packages to send hope, health, and happiness into the world. So if you know someone that's feeling down and could use some encouragement, I want to just give away some bags this week. I'd love to give away 10 to send hope, health, and happiness into people's lives. All right, back to the show. All right, so today I have on H3 TV my friend Lisa. So please help me welcome her to the stage. Hey, Lisa, good morning.
Yes. Oh, good morning. Sorry about the confusion.
No worries. No worries. Life happens, right? And I was with a client working on a speech and so excited about her speech that I ran over. So my apologies to you.
That's okay. But first, let me tell you, I'll join your movement. I'm ready to be angry. That's all I can. Yes, I am already probably angry. So it's great.
Right. And it sometimes helps us to, sometimes inside of that anger, we find passion and it's like, enough. I want to scream from the rooftops. Like, this is not, people are hurting, people are broken, and we need hope and we need to talk about things. And I love women. I do a lot of advocacy for women and women's organizations, but losing my brother and then this young man, a friend of mine's and a fellow speaker's son, I feel like, and so many people over the last 30 years, I have to talk about this for men and for women. I have to say it's okay to be emotional. It's okay to be sad and be angry, but it's also really okay and important to get help and to not feel so alone. A lot of people feel alone, and my heart aches for that. So
yeah.
Anyway, good morning, Lisa. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. We can talk about lots of things, but today I just want to ask you to tell us who you are. Who are you? Where do you live? And what do you do, Lisa?
Okay. I am Lisa Kramer. I live in Massachusetts, in Central Mass. And what do I do is such a confusing thing, but I encourage people to find hope by tapping into something that we often don't use, and that's our creativity, our inner child, if you want to call it that, our willingness to play. I really firmly believe that that's been kind of sucked out of society, that creativity and not innovation like technology innovation is, whoa, let's go, let's go. But then they're not leaving room for human innovation, for like the joy of life, for beautiful things, for beautiful objects, for connecting with others creatively, which would give people a reason to live sometimes. Just bringing it back, for expressing emotion. Those things are kind of pushed aside because they the only thing that people focus on is product and money at this point in time.
Some people, we don't want to say everybody, because we know
some people.
There's a lot of great people in the world, right, Lisa?
Some people,
And I forgot to say to our listeners, feel free, if you have any questions or comments for me or Lisa throughout the show, leave them in the chat. Both of us will respond, maybe not during the show, but after, whether you're greeting us from YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, we are here to support and encourage you. You're reminding me, Lisa, I had the privilege this weekend of co-facilitating a women's retreat outside of Tampa. And one of the women there who I fell in love with, and like the first 5 minutes I met her, she worked in prison for 30 years. Oh, I'm going to start crying because you're saying this, but she brought art into the prison. And she said, so many people get written off. Like, you're in prison, you're bad. Oh, no. And she's like, I brought coloring and painting and creative expression. So these people could see, the people in prison could see their value, and that they shouldn't be discarded because they've made that one horrible or tragic thing they did shouldn't define them, that they had creative expression. And just how she loved and honored people made me really love her. She was like, I met some of the most violent prisoners, and then I'd say, let's color. And they were like, what? And she goes, all of a sudden this flow, like we all have creativity inside of us. Flow seems to be a word this week. So tell me this, Lisa, when you think of the word disruption or storm or challenge, what comes to mind to you as a general definition?
Disruption, storm, and challenge. Well, I think that we need more disruption, storm, and challenge. Honestly, I feel like too many people right now, or our society encourages people to think a certain way, to fall in line, to do what we're told. And to me, the challenge of life is, how can we disrupt that? How can we change it and say, no, being a human means that we get to be human first, and that we are innately creative, even if people don't think they are, and we should be able to live life that way. That's what brings joy. So I'm all about, especially now, I'm all about challenging systems, about just bringing ourselves, true selves, to whatever we do, and saying, you know what, you can't rule me. You can't tell me that I can only fit in one box, because I think our boxes, to change the metaphor, it's not breaking out of a box, but our boxes can be infinitely large. We can bring in so much, and we don't do that. So challenging that idea that you only can be one thing, or that there's only one purpose in your life, that's part of disrupting the world that I'm very much about,
And I love that. So you're seeing a really positive side to disruption, almost a need for disruption in our world. Yeah, I'm always like, question the status quo, which is good and bad. But my kids are like, are you ever satisfied? I'm always like, well, I know, like, I did that really good. How can I make it better? How can I make it better? How can I impact more lives for the good? So I'm always disrupting my own thought to enhance and divide. So now I want to ask you, Lisa, is there a disruption, challenging or good, that you've gone through in your life that had a great impact, professionally or personally?
Well, my background is, I was teaching, I have a doctorate in theater for youth and theater for social change. I have an MFA in directing, so technically I'm supposed to be a theater person. And I also, I'm also a writer, but I kind of fell into academia. Mm-hmm. And in academia, there are still some very strict norms about what that means and stuff like that. But I never set out to be Professor Kramer. I never set that out. And so I'd go into the classroom and just do what I think. I mostly was teaching at theater. Sometimes I was teaching in education. I taught everywhere. So just by my very existence in that world, I was disrupting the world, because nobody could figure out where I belonged. So that's fine. And so I was always trying to think, how can we make this more, how can my students get more out of it? A lot of times I would be teaching theater classes that students would take because it was easy, but guess what? When you take it with me, it's more challenging. But then I left. My biggest disruption was leaving, because it all happened in 2020. Both things happened, COVID, and I hit major burnout all at the same time. Yeah. And since then, I'm trying to reinvent myself. So has it ended up good? I don't know. I'm figuring it out. But what it has done is make me see that the systems that we have in place right now are not good for anyone overall, that we're forgetting humanity, we're forgetting what it means to be kind, we're forgetting how to communicate and share. So in that sense, the disruption that I've given my life has given me clarity of my purpose. And do I have clarity of how I'm doing the purpose? Figuring it out as I go, but that's a creative act. But just that I want to help people find that connection to their creative side. And by creative side, I don't mean that everyone has to become artists or whatever, but just that we are built to innovate. That's who humans are. We wouldn't be as far today as we are if someone hadn't discovered fire or hadn't made a connection between A and B way back when. I mean, yeah, we evolved, but there's still, it's something that's inside of us. And I want people to get that back, because I really think we're depriving ourselves. So
okay, so here's what I'm going to take away. I always try to get some sound bites out of what people say to me. So first, I'm an immense believer that none of us are created to fit in, but to stand out. So I think that's important, that belonging sometimes means being different to belong, is accepting our authentic self. Second, last night I was at an event that was about,
on my end.
Last night I was at an event about resilience and about raising money for nonprofits and helping philanthropic people give. And a man was there from a theater, and he said, how do we get young people to care about giving? We have a generation leaving us that cares about giving out. And I thought the woman on the stage was brilliant. She was amazing. She said so many cool things. My heart went out to her. And she really also cares about mental health, which is so important to me. But she said, do you care about them? And she really pushed back on this guy that I loved. And she said, let them do their concerts in your theater for free. Let them start a group there. Let them come and volunteer. Let them, instead of saying, what can I get from them? I want some money. Show them that they matter to your community. Volunteer to let the high school kids come do this and do this. And she gave him a list of 10 things. And he was like, whoa, okay, you're right. And do you text, or are you still doing this? Or where are you meeting them? And I just thought it was so beautiful. And I love that you were I feel like we're all teachers, many of us in classrooms, many out. But as you moved away from, chose to disrupt your life, to say what else and what more, as you move away from that, we are lifelong teachers, as long as we're willing to do it for good, right? We're teaching when we get on a show like this. We're teaching when we're meeting someone in a coffee shop. We're always how can I encourage you? How can I educate you? How can I expand your mind? I love when speakers are speaking about something, when I'm teaching someone to speak, and I'm like, be pissed off enough that you know that you have wisdom that someone doesn't have. And one of my biggest errors as a professional speaker when I started was I assumed people knew what I knew. They do not. They don't have your experience. They don't know. They don't see like you do. We get to broaden people's minds. So I love your creativity, even in your teaching style, was hey, I'm not going to make this easy because I want to make this rich. I'm not going to make this easy because I want to give you more. So I want to ask you, as you're reinventing yourself, so you leave a job, which is hard. People are I want to speak like you. And I'm how do you feel about not getting a paycheck? They're what? I'm there's all these things happening behind the scenes that I do before I get on the stage, right? Yeah. And so I want to know, Lisa, how did you, when it felt oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming, what am I going to do? Who am I really? What am I reinventing? How did you stay hopeful? What were some strategies, some tips on those days you got up and you didn't have any place you had to go, but you were still reinventing? How did you keep hope in your life?
Well, I mean, sometimes it's hard. I'm not going to pretend. Sure. Sometimes I'm oh God, I'm not contributing financially to my household, but I'm so lucky because I have a husband who's super supportive of me figuring this out. Part of it was that in 2020, before COVID even hit, I was having a mental crisis of complete imposter syndrome, and I'm a failure in life. What am I doing? So I was going through some stuff then. And so when COVID hit, what happened was I was still teaching then. I mean, there was that semester that you had to pivot, that everything, and all of my courses are very public focused, so that there's always an activity that you have to do with someone outside of the and I did a lot of classes where the students from the college worked with transition students. So that's students from 18 to 22 who could not really graduate from high school because of various disabilities, but they would come and they would work and then do workshops or create a show, depending on the class. There were a lot of things. And that, of course, could not happen in 2020 because there was no way. I mean, I could pivot my class for my students, but there was no way I could pivot it for those students because just the tech.
Well, was there something you did in the morning or some sort of thing to stay hopeful in the face of all that adversity?
Well, what I'm saying is that so learning how to pivot that, learning how to change that and have a successful, not different, but successful class made me go, I can do this. I can make choices that are valid. And then so when I left, I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure this out, and going in no plan. But I woke up every morning and I journaled and I did I did all kinds of weird, well, not weird, like I would list 10 things that that I did positively every day. I would do all of that stuff and just keep being hopeful, keep trying something. There are days that I have a hard time, but what I try and do, and I just actually did it before I was meeting with you, is sometimes you just have to sit there and create something. Meaning for me, it's often writing, because that's my go-to, and just write until you figure out what you're trying to say to yourself. And just getting it out on paper, whether it's good, bad, ugly, whatever, helps you kind of go, okay, this is my purpose. I can stay with my purpose. This is good. I don't know what's going on with my camera right now.
And Lisa, I want to say this to you, is that the whole point of this show is that I am 100% aware that it is hard, that disruption can be hard, even disruption that we choose. And so what I'm always trying to teach every week is, how do we, in our hard, to our audience, how do we stay hopeful? How do we stay healthy? And how do we stay happy? And so for you, I want to highlight 3, and I'd love for you to put these. So I don't think they're weird. I think they're excellent tips that I'd love for you to put in the chat after we're done with the talk. Is number 1, Lisa says, when you're feeling stuck, when you're feeling overwhelmed, the way to stay hopeful is she journals. Number 2, she said, I do a top 10 list of what I've actually done. I think when we work for ourselves or when we're reinventing ourselves, I can feel like, did I do anything today? It's 6 o'clock and I've been going nonstop and I'm not on my computer. Did I do anything? So going back and reflecting, you know what? I made a new connection on LinkedIn. You know what? I reached out to someone to have a coffee. You know what? I like giving ourselves credit. I love that top 10 list. And the other thing you said is mind dumping. So when we're overwhelmed because life is hard, because we're transitioning, you say, just mind dump. Get that piece of paper. It's not even have to make sense. It can be a to-do list. It can be something spinning. It can be some sort of chaos, but it's really, how do I release what's in my brain that's actually stopping me from moving forward in the hard? So I never want to minimize to our listeners that disruption is hard. My encouragement to my listeners is always, there are ways to stay hopeful, healthy, and happy in the midst of the hard, whether disruption chooses us or we choose disruption. So Lisa, it looks like you're having some computer challenges, but if you can still hear me, I'm going to keep asking you questions. And so the next question I want to know is healthy. And I always like to remind my listeners that when I'm talking about health, I'm talking about 7 areas. So for you to answer this, Lisa, I want you to think about 5 areas of health. So number 1, physical, emotional, mental, financial, relational, spiritual, career. That there's lots of areas of health. And when we think about what can I do to take care of myself, we know that all of them affect our physical body when they're out of balance, whether that's our relationships or our finances, can make us physically sick. So were there any strategies? You said you have a supportive partner. That's beautiful. You have a husband that's not only believes in you, but says, hey, you got this, keep going. You have some gifts here, go share them with the world. That's a beautiful thing. And whether we have a supportive partner or not, what are some things, some strategies or tips you do? Like, okay, I'm committed to not going back to being a professor right now, but I'm still a teacher. How am I going to use those gifts in the world? What were some things you used to take care of yourself in any of those 7 ways as you transition to your own career?
Well, mental health is huge with me. There was a moment when I hit rock bottom, and I was aware of it. And so I reached out and got counseling. No shame. I'm on meds now. No shame. You got to do what you got to do. I am not good at this, especially because it's 1 degree outside right now, but trying to walk every day, trying to get some movement in. So another thing that I often do was just stand up and dance. I mean, again, that's where being playful, being willing to play. My best exercise right now when it's so cold out is to play with my dogs. Just run around and play with my dogs. It may be 5 minutes, but just doing that makes me feel better. I'm 100%. Also not good at eating right, but I try eating healthy. I try and do all of those things. And for me, it's also, I've been working on, and this is making connections with people who think like me. So having these conversations with you, having conversations with other people, just exploring and not limiting it to, like, I don't know about you, but on LinkedIn a lot, I get a lot of those, hey, do you want to have a coffee conversation? But it's rarely a sales pitch. I will respond to those with, I'm happy to have a connection call with you to just chat. But if you're going to sell me anything, I'm not interested. And the reason I do that is because when I accept the sales pitches and know I can't afford to get this coach or to do this thing or whatever, then I start feeling bad about myself. But if I'm like, I'm happy to meet someone who thinks I'm interesting, then I think you're interesting. Let's tell a story. Because you were saying before, we're teachers, but I also think of myself as a forever learner. So I may be teaching you something right now, but I'm learning from you at the same time. And that's the way I approach life. So allowing myself permission to not have to jump through those kind of sales hoops or those more toxic conversations, and just have conversations with people who are willing to just have a conversation makes me feel better. So there's a lot of it's all very subtle. I mean, I try and be healthy, but like, we were supposed to have this conversation a month and a half ago, and I got COVID that day. I was sick, never had COVID before, was not happy. And so now I'm still like coughing, and I still get the repercussions
So I
of that.
love, Lisa, I always like to ask people what's in your medicine cabinet. And I think it's a great visual. I always love to learn visually. You have some great things in your medicine cabinet. You have play. Play was one of the first things you said. One of the last things you said was boundaries. I have boundaries around who I'll engage with and who I won't, where I'll spend my time. I love dance. If I could tell every listener that ever hears me speak, turn up the music and dance around your house, it will bring you physical health, mental health, emotional health. You will laugh at yourself because you're a dork. You will have so much joy because you'll be singing along to songs. I love that you dance. I love that you acknowledge you have therapy. I've gone in and out of therapy my whole life. I think therapy is a great idea. My therapists always fire me. They think I have it together. I must be a good actress. I don't know. But anyway, they always say,
I'm not in therapy now, but I was when I.
You're good here. You can go, and having one on speed dial or on call when you need it, when a hurricane hits, when a disruption hits, having a great therapist is so important. In fact, I'm always nervous when people are like, I would never go to therapy. I'm like, do you think you're better than people? Because we all have stress. And if we don't process it, we hold it. And if we hold it, it makes us sick. So I love therapies. You said you're using medication and you use movement. And yes, winter definitely affects us. It's why I always wanted to move to Florida. People ask me all the time, what about your kids? I'm like, I love my kids, but I love taking care of my mental health, and movement outside, fresh air heals me. So you gave us some really great strategies for health. I'd love for you to add those in the comments afterwards. And the thing I like to think about, because I do believe laughter is one of the greatest medicines, where do you and how do you stay happy and joyous and find laughter and humor in your life, especially in stressful times? How do you find it and seek it?
I mean, I am a total K-drama addict. I will admit this. Korean drama, Korean drama addict.
Oh, I don't know that. Okay.
Oh, it's just, I mean, there's sappy, dramatic romances and mysteries and stuff, but they always have quirkiness, and there's always laughter. So I'll watch those. It's very fun. I do, I'm shifting this now, but I was having salons where I write with other people. That's one of my ways of making a living. But and doing that, we don't always write. Sometimes what we write is dark and sad, but at the same time, there's laughter just in the group of connection. For me, laughter is about making connection with other people. And, and when you're having a hard time, it's really hard to see. But I also will sometimes just do something that like, just something silly. I'm willing to be silly. And that, I think a lot of people are really afraid of it, but doing something silly, laughing at watching something stupid, watch a YouTube video that makes you laugh, watch puppies or kittens, whichever one you want. There's no way you can watch those videos without laughing. Watch monkey videos. If you've ever seen any monkeys, there's no way. It's like, there's nothing. The good thing about technology is we have all this access to things that can make us laugh. And if you have to, I mean, I'll also watch the shows from our childhood, the shows that we grew up with, because sometimes there's humor in that. Like, MASH is kind of early childhood for me, but I still love it. I know it's problematic. I know there's issues with it, but it's funny. And when you know it, it's easier to laugh because when you're working like with something like that and you've seen it so often, you can just look up at the right time to laugh and then look down and do something else. So I don't know. It's just treating each day like not so seriously. Even though we're living in very serious times, I think we have to embrace the fact that we don't have to be serious all the time. You can't always be serious because that's when you start getting sick or not accomplishing things.
Well, it sounds like you seek humor. Like you, for one thing, I always think the happiest people are people that can laugh at themselves. And even if other people are laughing, rather than being offended, just be like, oh my gosh, I am a dork. You're right.
I'm a total dork. I'm a total klutz. I do stupid things all the time and I laugh at myself. I do that.
There's freedom inside of that. So what I want to know next, Lisa, I would kind of have these questions I love for my listeners to get to know my guests is what advice would you give yourself if you were a teenager still? Like, what do you know now that you wish you know then? And of course, we usually have to learn by experience, but I still always think it's a good question to ask. Like, what would you have told your younger self that you were closed in on and that you maybe missed as a young person? What would you have told your younger self?
Be more courageous. And this is actually easy because my daughter is in her final semester at college right now. So it's like I'm seeing her go through it again. But when I was younger, I always wanted to be an author, and I let judgments of one professor who liked somebody else's work better than mine knock me off that path, right? When I was younger, I was on stage all the time. By the time I got to college, I'm too scared to audition because I'm short, I'm curvy, I don't have that, the ingenue look, and I talked myself out of it. When I was younger, I had all of these, like I was going to live in New York and I was going to do this stuff. And I'm not saying that any of those would have been right for me, but I did let some things stop me. And I wish that I had taken the leap into writing and into just building my own theater practice, not staying. I stayed in academia because it felt safe, because I was good at it. I mean, that's my reality. And I wish I had not done that. I wish if I could go back, I would study something different. I would be doing different things right now. Not that I dislike my life. I love my life. I've had really great adventures and I've done some courageous things, but just generally that I know that I held myself back because of fear, and I wish I was more courageous. So my advice to myself is be courageous.
And I think there's never an age where we can't encourage ourselves. Be more courageous. Put yourself out there. Who cares if you fail? So you fail and you learn, and then you try again, and then you try something different. And maybe you're not good at this. And I always tell people, like, if you want to be a speaker, try being a speaker. It's harder than it looks, and it's a lot of behind the scenes. But if you feel called to that, give it a try. If you want to write a book, write a book. Who cares if anyone reads it? You'll never like, I wish I wouldn't have written that. I wish I wouldn't have done the work. I always think it's good. So Lisa, what I want to know as an educator, as a person that's teaching and learning, is there a success story that you have in your life, personally or professionally, of where your positive, creative self was a positive influence to a client or a friend or a neighbor?
I've had many, honestly. One point I used to live in Colorado and was teaching there, and then moved many times since then, right? And I got a letter at my campus mailbox one day from someone random. I opened it up, and it was a graduation announcement for a student that I honestly did not remember him. I had no recollection of him, with a picture. And he said, he had been in a writing class, an intro, like required writing class. And he's like, I never could write before. I never could express myself. I struggled with everything. And your class made me have clarity, made me be able to write. And now he had transferred school. I'm graduating from this school with this degree, with this intent. And I was like, whoa, I don't even know how he found me, first of all, but just feelings like that. But I mean, for me, they're always small. It's always about seeing someone. What helped me transition or helped me decide to rebel and just leave everything was I was teaching a course that was a liberal studies class. So it was kind of a create your own major class where all the students who didn't know what they wanted to do kind of put their own major together. And this one student who was graduating, he just had to finish that one class to get his degree, was a scientist. He was a chemist, I believe. he already had his job and everything. And I kept encouraging him to insert some creativity into his work, to do this. And he did. And then he said to me at the end, he's like, I never realized how creative science is. And I'm like, just those little statements make me feel very proud of interactions. I was thinking about it today when I was journaling and realizing that, can I claim huge wins? No, but if I've helped anyone express themselves in any form, whether it's art, writing, or having the courage to come on and do a YouTube video or whatever, then I've succeeded. And so I'm really happy with that. Yeah.
I think you're living out what you would tell your younger self of be more courageous and putting yourself out there. And in doing that, you allow your students, you allow the people you influence to be more courageous themselves. So you're really living it full circle. And for me, at 21, I was told you're not smart enough to go to college. And, you have dyslexia, you have ADHD. And I always think, I don't have a disability, I have a difference. I believe we all have differences and different styles. And just in December, I finished my bachelor's degree. So I'm going to walk in February. And I was thinking about that man at 21 and how so many years I let his story about me, as you had a story, that people get to decide for us. And when we wake up to, I'm kind of done with that. I'm going to decide who I am and what I do with the rest of my life. And I might be the messiest person in the world, or I might be the slowest reader, or I might see words that are there or miss words that aren't there. But I'm going to keep trying. And today I've written 9 books. Like, I just feel like when I stop letting that man define my abilities and my creative. And I also love, because I've always thought, you're not creative. I can't draw. I can't color. I don't stay in the lines. And as I've aged and gotten wiser, I've realized creativity is a million things. It's a new recipe. It's refurbishing furniture. It's reinventing a business. It's writing a poem. It's writing a story. It's engaging with people in an innovative way. There's a million ways to be creative. So I just want to say thank you to you for lighting the light in people's lives, especially those of us that have been told you're not.
I mean, for me, I think all of my work with disabled people, that it happened accidentally. It's not like I studied that or anything, but as soon as I started with working with adults with disabilities, and I'm talking severe disabilities, but also learning disabilities and things like that, and realizing that giving them permission to do what everyone else was doing in their own way with their own was just so rewarding. And I mean, it makes me so sad that someone pushed you out of, but you are amazing. And I think that's incredible. I would rather, that's where I think for me, the advice about be courageous, so many people that I knew just said, screw it, to school. Not that I'm saying don't go to school, and went out and did, and started their, they do rather than they practice what they preach. And I stayed in school to study about it, which isn't necessarily the way that you want to be. And it took me until I was in my 50s to say, you know what, this is not the life that I want. And so, yeah, I'm embracing courage now. I'm not courageous every day. Some days are really, really hard. Some days it's really difficult to get out of bed. I admit that, but facing it and embracing it and knowing and being able to acknowledge that I don't want a traditional life. I don't worry about I don't care about following a certain path. I want to just be me. It's really important. And that's what I want to encourage in other people. I want them to see that. And you don't have to be famous, and you don't have to be creativity is not defined by success. I think that's the problem. We've defined creativity to mean certain things, like a creative person is the movie star or the musician, and I'm like, no, you can have an awful singing voice and make up a song and sing it out loud and be proud, and you are being creative, period.
100%. I am that person. I cannot sing very on key, but I will keep on singing, and I will keep on being creative, and I will keep on celebrating and embracing other people's creativity. And there's not one way to get from point A to point B. And it took me 38 years to graduate from college, but I am humbled, I'm honored, and I'm so grateful I didn't give up. And I'm so grateful other people that bet against me didn't define how hard I was willing to work to do and become all that I've gotten to be in my life. Lisa, I know that my listeners are going to love listening to you and your encouragement. Thank you for your authenticity. And what we know, listeners, is that life can be really hard. and getting out of bed can be hard, and taking a shower can be hard for people, and joy can be hard. And not everybody has the support system that other people do. And not everybody has the learning processes in their brain that everyone else does, but every life has value and every person has value. And that's why we come to you every week and we talk about how to be hopeful, healthy, and happy. And so, Lisa, my final question for you is, I know my listeners are going to want to connect with you. I hope you'll respond to all their questions and comments. Mm-hmm. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you when you say hello. Thank you when you tell us where you're listening for. And particularly thank you when you ask Lisa or I questions so that we can encourage you on your journey. We know life is hard. We never want to diminish that. But what we want to do is bring you ideas and strategies how to stay hopeful, healthy, and happy in the hard disruptions, even the ones we choose, like moving to Florida, and then the hard things that happen when we transition. So, Lisa, what is the best way for my audience to get in touch with you or connect with you?
There's two things. You can follow, I have my personal website is lisaakramer.com, and you can email me through there. You can contact me through there. And I also I'm part of sparkcollaborative.org, which is a platform, free community where people like us are. It's a great place to find. I mean, we're slowly building. But I'll be offering workshops a couple of times a month that are just creative play, find your voice, connect with people workshops. Love to see people there. I'll be doing a free one in February.
Feel free to leave that in the comments, kind of links to that. I really want people to be able to connect with you easily, like through LinkedIn or Facebook.
Oh yeah, LinkedIn, Facebook. I mean, you can find me in all of those places.
So you can add all your information about your website in different comments and things. But I think first we want to connect you with Lisa on LinkedIn, and then she will tell you all the plethora of tools and communities she's creating to care for people and celebrate their creativity. So thank you to our listeners. Thank you, Lisa, for being with us today.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week on H3 TV.
Thank you.